Hi, my name is Julia Kline with IntuitiveBusinessWoman.com. And in this quick video, we're going to discuss 3 strategies for building rapport in order to close the sale more effectively, as well as one thing you should never do when attempting to close the sale. And the first thing that we're going to talk about is how to match your voice modulation. This is sometimes referred to as mirroring and matching because the mirroring part comes if you have somebody sitting across from you, and if they're leaning backwards, you want to lean backwards. That establishes rapport. If you are very skillful at doing this, you can notice their breathing patterns, right? You can see their chest moving. I'm very much exaggerating this so that you can really see how I'm breathing. But when you're skillful, you can notice these breathing patterns, and if you match your own breathing patterns, that becomes a very powerful strategy to get in sync with someone who you are attempting to build rapport with so that you can introduce the sale. Another way of doing this, though, is with your voice. So I am a visual person. That means I speak very quickly, and I often speak kind of from the higher part of my register. And so if you were speaking to me, you would be well advised to speak quickly and get to the point. If, on the other hand, you are talking to somebody who is more kinesthetic and is more in a feeling space, they're speaking more slowly, coming more from their body, you would be well advised to do the same, to match how they're speaking. You get the difference? So that's the first rapport building strategy, matching their voice tone. The second thing that we want to talk about is the strategy of asking questions. Now, I'm going to do a whole other video about this strategy because it's so important, that how to ask questions, how to effectively utilize questions. But in terms of building rapport, the most important thing to keep in mind with questions is that when you ask a question of somebody, what's everybody's favorite thing to talk about? Themselves, right? So when you ask them a question, let them have fun with it and answer. Let them talk. A client of mine recently, who I've been coaching with some sales coaching and writing a sales script for, was making this mistake in a big way on the front end when I was listening to some of his initial recorded conversations. He would ask a question, and then the person would get 10 seconds into answering it, and he would interrupt with something that he wanted to say. Terrible way to build rapport. And it's a classic thing that a lot of experts do, right? Because we're very knowledgeable, we have a lot of information we want to share, we can't help but jump in and share what we want to share. So here's a strategy to help you maintain that listening pose that is so important for closing the sale. And that is, have a notepad out in front of you. And so as you're listening to their answers, you're first of all jotting down what their answers are, so that's helpful information you refer to later, but also jot down the responses that you would like to make to their questions. That will help you to not jump in and say what it is they want to say, but rather hang back, let them finish, and then circle back with the things that you wanted to say. Right? Is that helpful? Great. Now, a third strategy for building rapport is to establish commonalities. A very common way of doing this, of course, is to discover hobbies that you have in common or lifestyle characteristics. For example, if you're both single parents or if you both like to ski, right? But these are fairly well-known strategies for building rapport. And what if perhaps you don't know what these commonalities are? Or you've kind of exhausted maybe already talking about skiing. Well, what did I say a moment ago is just about everybody's favorite topic, themselves, right? So an excellent strategy for establishing a commonality is actually to simply agree with them. And here's a way that that works in practical application. If they say to you, gosh, that's a great question, I'm really going to have to think about that, you can say back to them, I would do the exact same thing if I was in your shoes. That's a good idea. I would do the exact same thing if I was in your shoes. And this gets particularly applicable as you get into the close. And you're starting to ask them questions like, are we your new service provider of whatever it is that you do? Or are you ready to get started today? Right? You're asking them very hard closing questions they want to kind of squirm out of because they're sort of uncomfortable questions. When they respond by saying, well, I'm going to have to discuss it with my accountant. I'm going to have to discuss it with my partner. I'm going to have to talk to several of your competitors to get some quotes. An excellent response in that case is, That's a great idea. I would do the same thing if I was in your shoes. And then proceed to explain to them why they don't, in fact, need to do that, because they can say yes today, right? But that's another one of these closing videos. Speaking of these other closing videos, I have one thing left to share with you today, and that is the one thing never to do when you are building rapport during a sales conversation. But if you would like more of these sales strategies, if you think that this has been interesting and you've found a thing or two about how to approach sales that you haven't thought of before, you can get a whole lot more of this on my upcoming free webinar, How to Get More Clients and Leads. And it is being offered this coming June 13th, Thursday, June 12th, and Friday, June 13th. And it's you can register for either one of those two completely free webinars by visiting the URL below, and that is intuitivebusinesswoman.com/secret, because we're going to teach you the secret for how to get more clients and leads. So that's intuitivebusinesswoman.com/secret to register for that free webinar that's coming up next week on June 12th and 13th, 2 live broadcasts of this webinar. And now, to round out this video, let's talk about the one thing you should never ever do when you are attempting to close a sale and build rapport, so on and so forth. And that is, do not call bullshit, pardon my French, on what the person you're talking to has said. For example, if you are closing them and you're asking them to share with you their reasons for why they do or do not think that they want to work with you, it's very important to be in agreement with whatever they say. I personally was in this situation just today. I was the customer role in a sales conversation, and somebody was asking me about whether or not to get started working with them, and I shared my very honest answers about why I'm not quite ready yet. And it was a very authentic, truthful answer, and this person said, "That's a lot of bullshit." I was like, "Excuse me?" And pretty much destroyed the chances of my coming to a conclusion in the future that maybe I do want to work with this person, because I had been very authentic about what I shared, and I was coming from a place that I felt was very honest. And for this person to come in at that point and say, "No, you're full of it, you're lying to yourself," was quite affronting to me at that point. That I did not yet have enough level of trust with this person to be able to hear that kind of a contradiction or criticism. Now, when you do have extremely strong rapport with somebody, when you've built a relationship over time, when you've done an exceptionally good job of the other things that I've talked about in this video, you can certainly be a bit confrontational and say, "You know what, I hear what you're saying, but let me reframe it for you." But even that, right, what I just said, "I hear what you're saying, but let me reframe it for you," is a gentler way to call the person on the blinders that they might be wearing, right? Rather than just saying, "Yeah, that's a lot of bullshit," right? So take that for what it's worth. I hope that you have enjoyed this video about how to build rapport and close more sales more effectively. And I look forward to you joining me on my free webinar next week, the secret to how to get more clients and leads. And you can sign up for that webinar at intuitivebusinesswoman.com/secret. Thanks very much, and I look forward to seeing you then.